Good morning and welcome to this virtual licensing subcommittee. I'm the chairman of licensing for Dorset Council. I'd just like to go over some housekeeping rules before we continue. This is a public meeting and it will be streamed live on YouTube. Only speak when the chair invites you to speak. If you have not been introduced before speaking, then please state your name. Can you mute your microphones and turn your cameras off when you are not speaking? After each party has spoken, the chair will go around all parties, starting with the members of the subcommittee to see if there is any questions for the speaker. If you wish to speak at any other time, please use your raise the hand function, but please bear in mind that everybody that's been sent in a representation to speak will get their opportunity to speak today. There is a chat bar. The chat bar is purely there just for anybody that has any technical difficulties. The members that are sat on the subcommittee will not be monitoring the chat bar. It will be monitored by our Democratic Services Officer, but that's literally all it's there for, is for any difficulties that you might get into. Please keep your background noise to a minimum, and can you please turn off any mobile phone or computer alerts that you may have. I'd now like to do some introductions. As I said, my name's Councillor Emma Parker, and I'm chairman of the Dorset Licensing Committee, and I'd like to introduce my two fellow councillors that are on this hearing with me this morning. And so if I can let you introduce yourself, councillors.
Go ahead, Susan.
Oh, I'm Councillor Susan Cockin. I'm a councillor for Portland Town Council and represent Portland at the Dorset Council as well.
My name's John Andrews. I'm the councillor for Sherborne East.
Thank you, councillors. And then if I could ask I'd now like to ask the council officers to introduce themselves to the committee, and I will start with our Democratic Service Officer.
Good morning, I'm Elaine Tibble and I'm the Senior Democratic Services Officer and I'm clerk in the meeting.
Thanks, Elaine. And then could I go to our legal representatives?
Hello, I'm Phil Crowther. I'm a senior solicitor and I'm the committee's legal advisor.
Thank you. And I believe that we have got Jessica with us as well.
Yep. Hello, I'm Jessica and I'm a trainee solicitor observing. Thank you.
Thank you. And then if I could ask the licensing team leader to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Aileen Powell. I'm the licensing team leader and I am presenting this report.
Thank you. And then I will now ask all parties and their representatives to introduce themselves, and I would like to start with the applicant, please.
I think
Hello.
Samantha.
Sorry,
oh, you're
yeah.
there.
Sorry,
Yeah.
It's Samantha Freeman, and I am the person that's brought this to you.
Okay, thank you. Are you okay to be dressed as Samantha, or would you like to be dressed as Miss Freeman?
Sam would be great.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then if I can go to any responsible authorities. So do we have the police here?
No, Chair, they're not in attendance at the moment.
No, the only other person that I have here obviously is Catherine Miller. Catherine, are you there?
Hi, yes, my name's Catherine Miller. I'm a licensing officer and I'm acting in the capacity of the licensing authority in the role of responsible authority today.
Thank you, Catherine. Then obviously I would like to go to the solicitor, if you would like to introduce yourself, please, and any persons that you'll be representing today.
Good morning, Chair. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
My name, great. That's always a good start. My name is Piers Warren from TLT Solicitors, and I represent Punch, who are the premises license holders. And with us today, who are available to answer any questions you have that I may not be able to answer, are Glenn Chadwick, who's the DPS. He is the licensee at the premises, so he leases the premises from us. And on behalf of my client Punch, we've got Jason McKeown, who is the operations manager, so he overlooks the area and has worked closely with me on this. And Julian, who's his colleague, who is taking over his patch shortly, I believe. So he's effectively observing to know what's going to happen with the future of Hardy's.
Okay, thank you. And are you all okay for first name terms?
Certainly happy to be addressed by my first name. Thank you very much. And I don't imagine anyone else is going to be more formal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Did you want to have your the representatives to introduce themselves separately? I'm happy for that.
I think at this stage, and there's not really much more they can add, really.
Okay.
So if you're happy with that, we'll press on. And as I say, if I need them to answer any questions, or if you have any direct questions, they're here to assist you.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. So how we will obviously proceed with the hearing today is obviously we will get Aileen obviously is going to be introducing the report. Then we will go to the applicant. We will ask anybody that's put in representation of the local authorities, us as councillors, we will ask questions, and I will go in a certain order with that, and I will stick to that order. Obviously, you will get your opportunity to ask questions. The applicant will get an opportunity to ask questions to the police or to the solicitor. And when I sum up at the end, I will also be going through the same procedure and the same list, and I will be finishing with Aileen, asking Aileen if we have any, if there are any questions. Now, to proceed with the meeting, we need to elect a chair for the subcommittee. So can I have a proposer and a seconder for the chair, please? John, you're muted.
I promised myself I wouldn't do that. So I'll propose Councillor Emma Parker.
And I would second that.
Thanks, Susan. Appreciate that. Do we have any apologies?
No, Chairman, no apologies.
Okay. Do either of the councillors have any declaration of interest?
Chair, I haven't, it's not a declaration of interest, but I believe the DPS, Glenn Chadwick, it used to be a former councillor for Portland Town Council, and we served on the same council about 5 years ago, and it was just for a brief period. We were on the council at the same time for about 6 months. But that's the only association I have with the DPS. Never socialised or been in the pub or anything like that. It was just a brief period that we were on Portland Town Council together. I don't know if he could clarify that, but I think I just recognise him from the picture.
Okay.
Good morning, Susan. Yes, you're absolutely correct.
Right, thank you, Glenn.
With that in mind, is everybody happy to continue with that?
Yes.
Okay. And also I will just mention that on the evening that pubs did reopen after the period of lockdown of COVID, I did attend Dorchester with the licensing team, and we did do obviously checks on all pubs in Dorchester. So I just want to say out there that obviously I was in attendance that evening, and if nobody has a problem with the meeting continue, then I shall continue.
Happy to do so.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Do we have any urgent business?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, with that in mind, the case before us today, the case has been brought to us by Samantha Freeman, has applied for a review of the premises licence of Hardy's, 11 Trinity Street, Dorchester, under Section 51 of the Licensing Act 2003 on the grounds of public nuisance. The application has been out to the public consultation and has attracted a number of representations. A licensing subcommittee must consider the application and representations at a public hearing, which is what we are doing this morning. So if I can pass over to Aileen to introduce the report for me, please.
Thank you, Chair. As you said, this is a review that's been applied for by a member of the public who is a close neighbour of the premises. The review is being sought on the grounds of noise and antisocial behaviour under crime and disorder from customers of the pub. And the applicant has actually detailed the incidents and the times that she's witnessed these sorts of events. There have been representations from the police, environmental health and the licensing authority setting out their involvement to date with the premises. There is one representation supporting the review application, but that has been exempted from the public pack due to its content. It has been made available to the committee in full. There's been supportive representations for the premises from a number of customers, and they are within the pack. There has been a petition, and whilst that does not count as a representation, it has been made available to the committee, who will give it such weight as they deem appropriate. Apart from the representations contained within the report, there's been additional information submitted by the police and by the licence holder's solicitor, which has been made available on the website and circulated to all parties prior to the hearing. I would like to draw your attention to paragraph 11.1 of the section 182 guidance, which states that a review proceeding represents the key protection for the community where there are problems associated with a premises licence relating to licensing objectives that occur after the grant of a licence. In the response to the review application, the Solicitor for Punch has proposed 5 new conditions to be added to the licence. This has now been supplemented following a discussion between himself and myself late yesterday to amend condition 8, which is a particularly difficult condition for officers to enforce. The condition is currently no noise shall emanate from the premises nor vibration be transmitted through the structure of the premises which would give rise to a nuisance. Unfortunately, all of the terms in that particular condition are particularly vague. So the proposal from the solicitor is that that condition could become no noise in the form of live or recorded music shall emanate from the premises, nor vibration be transmitted through the structure of the premises, which when assessed by the DPS/manager of the premises would be likely to give rise to a public nuisance. A documented check will be undertaken at the beginning of any live music provided within the premises. The check will be undertaken outside the rear of the premises at the nearest point to the residential property to ascertain that the volume is such that it is unlikely to cause a public nuisance. The check shall be recorded in a logbook and made available for officers from the responsible authorities on request. Before making any decision, obviously the committee will need to hear all the oral evidence before them today, and then they will need to decide what measures that are proportionate and appropriate to be taken in response to this application. Thank you, Chair. You're on mute, Chair.
It's because my bar's not in the middle of my screen anymore, it's at the top.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, just before we go any further, I would like to remind everybody today that obviously all of the councillors here today have read the reports, obviously, and taken everything on board that's been said. So it would be great to have no repetition, but obviously you are well within your rights to amplify anything that you may wish to. So I will go to the applicant, Sam, if you've got anything that you would like to add to your report, Sam. Thank you.
Yeah, just needed to unmute. Yes, I have a few questions also. But yes, I have a few things I need to add because of what happened since I sent in my account of what's been happening. A few things is that it's the music does engulf the whole of our building. The building is a new build, and that our actual lounge and bedroom is on the front of the property. So we overlook Hardy's and overlook Trinity Street. I didn't actually put that in my my application before. So we actually see everybody out on the street when they come out. Now, I'm saying this because of the what the solicitor said about people coming down the street from other pubs when they actually don't. They're actually all coming out of Hardy's exit and just hanging around, making all this noise, which is actually what comes out, what actually is in the building of the shouting and chanting and everything, comes out and spills out onto the street, if you actually understand what I mean. If there's anything else, our neighbour's boyfriend did actually go around to complain to the landlord. I didn't actually say that because that was afterwards. I don't know if there's anything else I need to add at this point.
Thank you for that, Sam. Councillors, do you have any questions for Sam?
Oh, mute. Yes, thank you, Councillor Parker. So the real problem with the noise and some of the problem you're appertaining the noise is the rowdiness outside of the premises rather than inside of the premises. Or I know you have concerns about the music as well, but it's a lot of noise outside. Am I right in assuming that?
Yes, it is. Yeah, because we can't sleep. Literally, we cannot sleep while it's going on. You know. No, it is the music, because the music sometimes is very, very loud. The music does stop roughly around 12, half 12 sometimes. And then when the actual pub empties, all that chatter, boisterousness, whatever you want to say, the antisocial behaviour, because they're all just lingering onto the side of Hardy's, because we're just right near Hardy's, so it does come over to our side. They actually line up in front of our property because it's how it's situated. Some of them do go down the alleyway and just stand at the top of it, smoking, etc. During the hottest period of the year, we had to shut all our windows because all the smoke was coming in. My actual partner has an allergy to smoke, nicotine smoke. You know, it makes her feel quite ill. So we had to shut all the windows. And then, of course, our building got really hot and was a bit uncomfortable that night, just because of all these people smoking. I mean, I'm not talking about just one or two people. I'm talking like 20 to 30 people that were all just smoking right in front of our property. So it was all just coming up into the windows. So it actually filled our property with smoke. It actually stunk for quite a while. Yeah, I mean, it's the noise inside, because it escalates. So you have the music, it seems to be coming all around. So I don't know if it's coming from the back as well and the front, because I know they have to have the doors open due to the COVID. And they have the entrance on one side, they have the exit on our side. So that's where they're all coming out. So I don't know what else to say. It's just, yeah, it's a continuation of the events, what happened inside, come out onto the street, and they just linger. I don't understand this lingering. You know, they're not waiting for taxis, because 95% of them walk home. We see them walking home. Okay. I can't go to bed until the noise has stopped, to be honest. Sometimes, as I said, it's 2:15, it's 3 o'clock. The latest was around 3:45, if I recall. Yeah.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think you've answered my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any more questions, Councillor Andrews?
No, none from me.
Councillor Cocking?
Yeah, I would like to ask the applicant, it says on her statement that the it started since the 4th of July. Was it just from that date, or did it start before that date? Because you put from the 4th of July, so is it a particular problem because of COVID?
To be honest, we did hear the actual pub before that. We could hear music, but we just thought, well, yes, it's a pub. We're next to a pub. We will see how things go. But we did hear it, but we didn't have this lingering. So I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because it's the summer. I can't really answer that. You know, it's all I know is that before the COVID happened, they would not come out that door, the exit door. They would come out the other door. So they would come in and out of one door. Since COVID happened, they're going in one door and they're coming out of another, mainly coming out of this exit right near us. So I don't know if that is exacerbating the issue, is making them all linger around there. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's answered my question.
Thank you. Thank you. Aileen, do you have any questions for Sam?
Not at this point, thanks.
Okay, thank you. And then I will go to responsible parties for any questions for Sam. Do we have the police here yet or not?
No, they're not.
No, okay. Catherine, do you have any questions?
No, not at this point, Chairman, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then I will go to the Solicitor Piers to ask if Piers has any questions for the applicant.
No, thank you. Not at this stage, Chair.
Okay, and any of the people that you're representing, do they have any questions? Bearing in mind it is questions, not statements at this time.
No, but I will be raising a few points they've raised to me in my submissions, if that's okay.
That's
Thank you.
Absolutely fine. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Now we will go on to the responsible parties to speak. Obviously, we don't have the police here. Obviously, the environmental health are not wishing to attend, but obviously they have given us a detailed report. So if it's okay, I'll go to see if Catherine has anything that she would like to add.
I have nothing further to add from what my statement is, unless you have any questions for me.
I don't have any questions for you, Catherine. If it's all right, I'm going to go through all parties, see if they have any questions for you, if that's okay.
That's fine, yeah.
Councillors, do you have any questions for Catherine on what Catherine has submitted?
No, not from me, Chairman.
Okay.
Sorry, mute. No, not for me, Chair, either.
Okay. Aileen?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And I will go to the applicant as well. Sam, do you have any questions for Catherine?
No, not at this. Not at this time. No. Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. And then I will go to Piers, the solicitor, to see if he has any questions for Catherine.
No, I quite like being called Piers the solicitor, though. It sounds very formal.
Sorry.
Thank you. No questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so moving on from that then obviously I will hand over to Piers the solicitor. Is there anything that you would like to add to your report, please?
Thank you very much. I'm struggling with buttons to make sure I click the right things.
We can hear you, so that's a bonus.
Oh, perfect. Probably don't want to see me, actually.
We can see you now. Thank you.
Feel free to ignore the pictures, as it were. Look, we hear what Sam says, and nobody wants to be responsible or have any part in other people's disturbance in premises. I will make a couple of just initial points from what has been said. We have never been informed of any noise at all from the premises prior to the reopening on the 4th of July. So the comments that Sam makes about noise outbreak, whether it was a disturbance or not, and I'm very grateful for her for making the point that obviously she wants to live and let live with the pub. I think that's a very fair point for her to make. But obviously we've never been informed of that previously. So that is news to us, and we will look at whatever we can to work with residents, with officers, to correct any problems that come up. And I'm going to go into some detail about some of the things we have done since we've been informed of any issues. But I just wanted to make that initial point, and I'll come back to some of the other points during what will be hopefully a reasonably brief submission. But I do think there's a lot to go through just to make sure we've said everything we need to say. The first thing that I would say, and this is key for this, is that we're not sitting here saying we are not the cause of any of the problems that may have been experienced by residents. I mean, that would be a daft statement to make. But what we are saying is this: when we have been informed of issues, we've grasped that nettle quickly, we've acted proactively, and we've seen improvements from what we can understand and from what you will have seen from the evidence given in the statements, which I'll come on to later, of your officers. This is a brave new world for all of us, and the 4th of July, from whichever political persuasion one may be, reopening pubs after 3 months of everyone going stir crazy inside on a Saturday that's also a holiday in America, was always going to be a difficult thing to control. It wasn't helped by the fact the regulations came out that evening, the day before, and the guidance had only been with us for a couple of weeks, which changed incidentally the week before we were reopening. So I think one must accept that a little leeway should be granted to operators who were basically marching on sand to try and get ready and open in a world that we never fully got to grips with in terms of what happened around the opening. And this is where we do get to say these are factors that were totally outside of the control of the management of Hardy's and certainly Punch Taverns as the premises license holder. There has been no history of noise, nuisance, crime or disorder or anything like that from the premises prior to the 4th of July. And indeed, as you'll have seen from the papers, Glenn may have only been there from November in 2019, but he did a full Christmas and a full New Year, which are usually the busiest times, without any problems being referred to us and without any indication that he was doing anything other than managing his premises very well. And indeed, that trade grew a premises that had been a bit of an eyesore and had previously been closed for a while in the town centre. So as you will know, councillors, shut premises and boarded premises have a deleterious effect on the perception of towns. And Glenn took this project on, has run with it, and has made a success of it, which I think should be commended in this day and age. During lockdown, he lived at the premises with 4 staff members and his wife, so there were 6 people there. They're perfectly entitled to use their garden as anyone else would. They were locked in, but they used the time to actually invest money and try and improve the premises. And one of the things that we think certainly has not assisted here, if you like, is that we all anticipated that we were going to be pushed outside if we wanted to go out. And that's what happened. And that follows on from what we saw in Spain and other countries that opened before us. So Glenn did the right thing and made his garden more attractive, worked out a way to actually fit his customers into that outdoor space so that he could at least open and trade with a chance of being able to keep his head above water. That obviously has knock-on effects, and I'll come on to that in a minute. And so what I have done in my statement, as you'll see, is identify the factors that have fed into this increase in noise and disturbance that has been affecting the residents. And you'll see that on page 2 of my statement. There's 6 bullet points. The most important ones here really are the closure of the nightclubs, because they're still not allowed to open as nightclubs, as you'll be aware, and actually the increased use of the taxis and taxis waiting outside the premises. Hardy's now being the latest premises in town, as you'll imagine, means that there is now people trying to get into Hardy's that never would have done because they would have gone on if they wanted to go anywhere else. And that's added another challenge, which comes to, if you like, the first point that's been raised today by Sam as a new point, which is the exit of people from the premises seems to be causing problems because it's the exit nearest them. Now, that was done deliberately. And the reason it was done deliberately was we anticipated, because of the restrictions on numbers inside the premises, it would be better to have people queuing and waiting to enter the premises away from the residential buildings and away from the alleyway. And that was a decision that was taken to try and help the residents. And then dispersal would be dealt with as it could be. What wasn't factored in was that dispersal would come on top of people coming from other premises, people who are waiting, and yes, people wanting to decide what they're doing next after they've left the premises, which is a matter of trying to disperse them properly. But when you mingle all that together, actually, you have a problem that's not of the premises is making, but it's something that we hope the premises has been able to try and assist with in some ways. And I'll come on to some real examples in a minute. But when you look at it that way, we of course, now we've heard this, one of the comments that Glenn made to me, sorry, if you see me looking at my phone, it's not because I'm playing Minecraft. It's because I'm looking at comments from my client who would normally be nudging me at the table if we were in the committee chamber and passing notes. So excuse me if you see me doing that.
That's fine.
But one of the comments that was made to me is we can look at swapping the doors around now that this has been identified as an issue and see if that works better. The problem may well be, though, that obviously we're then dealing with people who are waiting to come in, waiting under the windows as well, and that might block the alley. And so we can have a look at that. It's one of the things we can try. The 10 o'clock closures has meant that a lot of things we could have tried can't be done at the moment in any sort of meaningful way, but certainly it's something we will look at and try and help. But let's just talk briefly about the clubs then, because they're closed, people are coming out and they're not moving on to the clubs, so they're not dispersing as quickly. But that's had the knock-on effect of all the taxis, rather than going up to the clubs where they would have their business usually, waiting down by Hardy's. And the evidence is quite clear that even when Hardy's was opening until midnight, early in July, the noise complained of by Sam goes on till an awful lot later. This you can see in her statement, noise until 2 a.m, and this the 4th of July, 10th of July, 11th of July till 1 a.m, 17th of July till 3:15 plus fighting, etc. So if you go down the list, you'll see actually from page 4 and 5 that the premises were closed at midnight for a lot of those times, had dispersed their customers, and indeed I have seen, and Ethan on behalf of Punch has seen the CCTV stills that demonstrate this is the case. So what you have therefore is groups of people who are hanging around, as has been witnessed by Sam, that simply cannot be related to the opening or the dispersal of customers from Hardy's. And in particular, let's look at the 17th of July and the 24th of July, where we have these fights. We've gone back and looked over our CCTV to see if there's anything we can assist on that. And there was no evidence on the 17th of July we could see on our CCTV, so the fight may well have happened outside of the range of it. And on the 24th of July, actually, there's no incident of a police record associated with the premises for either of these. So actually, the police don't think these incident fights are representative of the premises. But you'll see that actually, again, the pub was shut, lights off, and dispersal had occurred. Now, one of the other things that you will note, and it's something that Jane mentions in her statement, is often taxi drivers come out and stand in the alleyway and smoke as well. So later on, if the premises is closed, there have been people smoking there. It could be taxi drivers as well as other people from the town. So what we've got here is a conflation of things that we need to put into the context and into the mix when we determine what's appropriate to do. I would also argue this: when you've got doormen outside a premises who are trying to disperse your own customers, and there are other people there for whatever reason waiting for taxis, etc. The presence of the doorman can often help to proactively manage those other people. Now, there's only so much you can do. is the truth. If people don't want to listen to your doorman, they don't have to. And certainly if they've not been in your premises, they don't have to. Glenn and his team try and confiscate glasses that have been brought down by other people. You'll see in our statement that this is a common refrain, people coming and waiting to go into the premises, been elsewhere, smuggle their drinks out, bring them down our end. So there's glasses that we have to deal with, people drinking that looks like it's coming from Hardy's but isn't. He is very proactive about trying to stop glasses coming outside, and we can't guarantee that someone doesn't sneak a glass out. You know, people stick them under their coats and do all kinds of things. But we are very careful and do watch as carefully as we can. And we are pretty sure we're on top of that. So again, it's another factor you need to take into account. And I just want to point out how proactive Glenn and his team are. Catherine's statement obviously makes the statement about the intoxicated young lady that needed ambulance help. Well, the reality is you've got our comments there on page 6, but I think the point to draw from that is that Glenn and his staff were actually praised by the police and ambulance staff who attended for their proactive means of actually dealing with that. And yes, the door was open and music could be heard, but that was because their double doors were both open while people were coming and going trying to assist this young lady. And then on the music point at the premises, again, the proactive nature of how Glenn has dealt with things. He wanted to put a band on the 1st of August. The government had said live music inside should be a thing that we'll be able to do by then. There was a meeting with the officers. They were wary, I think it's fair to say, of music inside because of COVID, quite rightly. But Glenn was able to show an operating plan that persuaded them that he had all the measures in place that would permit them to agree that the music could go ahead. That's very proactive management in the circumstances. And actually, when the government then turned around and said, well, actually, we prefer live music not to be inside for another couple of weeks, he cancelled the event. It's easier to cancel a band than it is to book one. He did that and did the right thing there as well. On the police representations, very quickly, because the police aren't here, I think if you look at the 9 incidents, I think there's 9 incidents and one other comment there in the round, a lot of them actually demonstrate proactive measures used by the premises to stop incidents escalating. And indeed, there's 2 incidents within the police second email, which is incidents later in August, where actually the intervention of the premises in issues that weren't necessarily related to them de-escalated things that could have got really out of hand. All pubs are going to have incidents. I'm afraid that's the nature of the matter. And at the moment where we've got fewer premises opening and people going to different premises than they usually would, you do get these odd flare-ups. But what I would say is this, where you can see in the statements, and if you read the statements we've added to the police comments carefully, there has been an incident. That incident has been proactively managed, and one must conclude that the proactive management has de-escalated what could have become a much more difficult situation. That is, I would submit, should be viewed in favour of the premises and the operation there. Jane, I know, can't be here, and Francis, who put in a statement supporting Jane's representation, can't be here as well. The music outbreak, and Sam said she wasn't sure whether music's coming from front or back. We think it was coming from the back of the premise. This was because of, quite frankly, we were using the garden a lot more for customers, so there were a lot more people coming and going, and therefore doors were opening, etc. But again, I think the point to focus on here is that when we were notified in a letter on the 1st of September by Jane that there were issues that she had found by going into the resident's property, she gave 2 weeks for works to be done. Works were done the following day, the 2nd of September, to put up an acoustic screen across the side of the stage, which acts as an acoustic barrier from the stage up to the ceiling, which prevented noise outbreak. And you'll see that she revisits on the 3rd of September and is impressed by the speed and the efficacy of the works undertaken. And indeed, what she goes on to say in her second statement is that when she revisited around the 18th, I think, off the top of my head, the noise issues and certainly the hubbub from the garden of people just using it seemed to be much better managed. Now, again, what we're saying is perhaps we could have grasped that nettle earlier. Perhaps we might have anticipated that with the door opening more, that might have been an issue. But with the best will in the world, trying to do 1,000 things to open a pub in a whole new world, I'm afraid some things sometimes just slip through. And what I would say is the proactive nature in which that's been dealt with should be the defining factor here of how you determine how Glenn manages the company. Now, there is a small elephant in the room, and it's in the police statement, so let's address it head on. The police have a complaint from a resident who says she was treated unsavourily by Glenn. Now, Glenn apologises profusely for that, and if she were here on this call or is listening in, we want to make it clear. Punch don't condone that. Glenn has reflected on it, and certainly it won't be happening again. The reality was, I'm afraid, and this isn't an excuse in any way, it wasn't a polite ask to turn the music down. It shouldn't have escalated as it did, and for our part, we are saying sorry for that. And I hope you're pleased to hear that. We do reflect on these things. No matter what provocation. Actually, Glenn usually is incredibly good at de-escalating issues. So on this one occasion, yes, he didn't do what he would have liked to have done. But the reflections are that wouldn't happen again. And one would hope from this, and I think the point won't be lost on you, the applicant for the review, as she said, I think a boyfriend of one of her neighbours went round at some point after the review had been submitted and complained. Had there been an attempt to engage with us earlier, we may not be here today. We could have obviously explained about the fact we weren't open on those days where there were noise nuisance. We could have perhaps done something about changing the doors over, or seeing if that worked for her. We could have tried whatever to have helped, but at least we'd have understood the concerns before we got here today. Now, I've sort of rattled through all of that because I don't frankly want to bore you and take up too much of your time. There are some proposed conditions. I don't know, actually, Chair, I wasn't aware at the start if you said I'd get a moment to sum up at the end, or do you want me to make all my comments now?
No, what we will do, I will ask if anybody has any questions for you, and then I will go back through the list again to do a final summing up.
Okay, well, I'll just keep a few remarks short, and I'll keep a few back for summing up then. You've seen the proposed conditions. One of them relates specifically to a COVID last entry time. There's a last entry time on the licence currently of 2 a.m. We've been operating a last entry time of 1 a.m. and that's during COVID to prevent more people coming down from other premises and queuing for ages to come in. It allows us to say, we're not allowing anyone else in. Sorry, chaps. Off you go. Thanks very much. Candidly, we don't necessarily want people late at night coming down to us from other premises when you don't know how intoxicated they are. So that one is just COVID specific, as you'll see. The others are conditions that we're prepared to offer to try and work with officers and residents. It includes adding a time for no new drinks outside in the yard, to gradually close the yard. Now, the reason we've done it this way is it seems to have worked very, very well, and you'll have seen from Jane's statement that when she observed, things seem to be working well in the garden, but it allows actually for a quieter and slower dispersal when otherwise, if you have a deadline of 11 o'clock, let's say, cut off everything, you have a real problem with capacity issues. And then you're trying to throw everyone out, and that creates tensions. And so we've put this in place. We've managed it. It seems to be working very well. So that's why the condition is worded as it is, rather than as an absolute stop. External management plans and dispersal policies, they can be refined. The reason we haven't put the full things in as conditions is that allows us to refine them. So if Sam or her resident friends want to come and speak about how best we can manage dispersal, if there's anything we can do to help, that can be rewritten into the policy. So those documents are documents that are there to be amended as best practice allows. And then we've got obviously a complaints and incident log, which will allow us to log any complaints, which will allow your officers to see if complaints are coming into them and us at the same time, and whether we're actually acting on them. And then the final condition that was read out very helpfully by Aileen earlier is to amend condition 8. That's the proposal because, yeah, candidly, the condition there at the moment has through the courts been deemed illegal, just because it's very, very difficult for anyone to understand or enforce what we're supposed to do. So that's a much better worded version of the same thing. And again, because we have to do the checks and they're documented, we're beholden to any officers who come in to confirm that we're doing what we say we're doing. And then it also allows us to reflect upon any other issues that come up, or if the residents come back and say, right, it's still a bit noisy on these days. Candidly, looking out the window here today, I have a feeling our summers are over, and windows are going to be shut and people aren't going to be outside quite so much, unfortunately, which is going to add to the problems of operators during COVID, but I think may help the residents for the summer. The final point I'll make before I cede the floor, as it were, is that if you have a operation of a premises prior to a lockdown, where there are no complaints, no crime and disorder issues, no issues identified at all, no problems with dispersal, one must assume that the premises can run in a way that is not only just supporting the licensing objectives, actively promoting them. This is a unique period for operators of premises from the 4th of July onwards until mid-September, when we got the 10 p.m. It was pretty much left for everyone to try and do what they could. And that's made things very difficult. It is a unique time, but it will end. So to do anything to the license permanently that would effectively remove the rights that the operator has now, and one has to remember that a premises license is property as defined in the Human Rights Act, one would be taking away the rights that they properly had and were able to manage previously for a situation now that is fluid and likely to change. The 10 p.m. hopefully, I think, has probably done, has acted in itself as a way of kind of breaking things up. But there are things we would like to try if we lose the 10 o'clock before COVID is over to help the residents. So I would say that we would hope things will go back to how they were when we get back to something like normality. I'll cede the floor on that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Piers. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your lengthy report. That was good insight. Thank you. Did Glenn have anything that he would like to add to his report, or is he happy that that Piers has covered the ground on that?
No, I'm more than happy, thank you. The only thing I would say is going forward from here, if Sam does, or any residents do have any problems, if they could contact me first and foremost, then we can work with them. It's not ever been brought to my attention before. And as Piers quite rightly says, it's a very unique experience right now. It's constantly changing for us, literally weekly. We have to adapt to a degree. Sam would have to adapt as well. But I'm more than willing to work with them. I don't want conflict. I don't want problems. So whichever way we can work forward the best, I'm more than happy to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions for Piers?
None from me, Chairman. Thank you very much for the report.
No, I'm okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Piers, for your very detailed report.
I've just got a couple of questions. Can I ask, you mentioned about the CCTV on the evening of all the instances that were mentioned. Has that CCTV been looked at by sort of like licensing, or been offered for the evidence to be put there?
As I said in my report, we've held it and we've got it available for any officer who wants to say it. I did think about submitting all of it, but they're dark CCTV images, and candidly, I don't want to overwhelm people. I have a smile on my face as I say this. When people say comprehensive report or very full report, I sometimes wonder if it means it's a bit too long. But I didn't want to make it any longer than it was. Well,
the more information we have, the better. And the only other point I'd just like to make for clarification, obviously, obviously you spoke about the doormen and how active they are and how good they are. Are they easily identifiable? Obviously, they are in high vis at all times.
I'll let Glenn answer that. I think that's probably the best thing.
Yes, they are. It was pointed out to me that that was part of our license, and since then, they are always in high vises.
Glad to hear it. Thanks for that, Glenn. So, councillors, any more questions for Piers? Aileen, do you have any questions for Piers?
No, thank you, Chair, not at this moment.
Okay, and I will go to the applicant, Sam, to see if you have any questions for Piers.
Yes, I do, actually. Yes, I'm like you. I'm on about this CCTV footage. As you said, it doesn't show everything. Where actually is this CCTV cameras, and where actually do they go?
Piers, if you could respond, that'd be good.
Yes, of course, and I'll probably defer across to Glenn because he obviously knows exactly where the cameras are positioned. Are you? I presume, Sam, you're talking about the outside camera, are you?
Yes.
Okay. I'll let Glenn answer that, if I may.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. We have 16 cameras in total in the premises. One covers the entire beer garden, and we have one covering each of the entrances and exits to the pub, and then the rest are internal. So they cover the whole of the frontage of our pub, basically, and the beer garden.
Thanks, Glenn. The one point I'd make for Sam, and it is a point that we need to just be careful about. There is an alleyway obviously down the side, and I believe that's where the entrance to your premises is. That is a public alleyway, and it is used obviously by people cutting through there. It is unlawful for premises to put CCTV up which would cover public areas that are not part of the property or immediately associated with it, for data protection reasons, as you can understand, because you're collecting personal data for anyone who walks down the alleyway when they're not associated to the pub. But we do cover the entrances, and CCTV has been provided to police in the past where they've asked for it. Indeed, it's something that Glenn proactively prepares for them.
Yeah. So it doesn't go down the alleyway. So it doesn't actually cut across to our frontage at all, and it'll only pan out probably so far. So you only see a tiny bit, really, of actually everything that's going on. So people can be on either side, and you're not going to see anything. So,
If I may answer that point, you're right. When the premises is closed, you don't see very much, which is why actually it's very unfortunate the incidents you refer to on the 17th of July and 24th of July with fighting late at night. We can't provide any evidence to the police of that. All we can do is demonstrate the premises is closed. However, when the pub is open, the doors are manned. There are door staff, and Glenn himself, you'll have seen from his CV, used to be a member of door staff as well. So they are there and they are visual. Glenn doesn't work behind his bar on busy times. He's out basically monitoring the doorways and customers inside. So he's regularly outside. So he keeps an eye on what's going on, which, as you'll notice from some of the police incidents, allows him to then intervene in incidents that are not related to the pub, to deflate incidents, call the police, and indeed help one gentleman who'd been hit by someone, again, not associated with the pub. So when the pub's open and the people are there, like door staff and Glenn, it actually helps manage the people who are outside who may not even be related to the premises. When the premises is closed, obviously the CCTV only goes so far, but that's as far as the law allows, I'm afraid.
Thank you for that, Piers. Are you happy with that reply, Sam?
Yes, I think yeah, that'll be fine.
I think Glenn wants to come in with something. Sam, are you happy to hear from Glenn? Obviously, it was your question.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Glenn,
you.
do you have something to add?
Yeah, our CCTV out frontage covers the taxi ranks as well. So we do cover the number of people milling around outside the front of the pub. No, we don't cover down the alleyway leading to Sam's property, because obviously that's public right of way. So we're not allowed to put a camera there. But all other aspects of the cameras cover, and a fair bit up and down the roads. It covers as far across the road to the dentist and as far up the road as the car parks. So there is a good coverage of the CCTV. Thank you.
I don't hear.
I muted myself then.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, Sam. Have you got any more questions that you'd like to add? I want to make sure that obviously you that you're happy that you've asked all questions that you can, because this is the time to do it.
Yes, it was just about the actual recommendations.
The proposed conditions.
Yes. I mean, I can't speak about this weekend that just went because we were on holiday. So I don't know if there was anything, if around 10 o'clock anything happened or whatever, but what about the closing of Hardy's a bit earlier?
Is that something that you would want them to
consider? Yes, because as you said, at the moment, if they are the last pub open and it's attracting all of these extra people, then wouldn't it be advisable just to shut earlier than the other ones, or at least a bit earlier? I'm not talking about going back down to the 11 o'clock one, but I mean something like 12 o'clock instead of the 2 o'clock at the moment. So at least then all those residents will be able to at least get to bed at a reasonable hour. Because as you said, sorry.
Sorry, are you asking that for the foreseeable, Sam? So basically, obviously, because at the moment we're on a 10 p.m. curfew, is that something that you would potentially want to see in place going forward?
Well, as I said, I know that yes, we're on the 10 o'clock curfew. I can't really comment on that, as I said, because I wasn't here, so I don't know, if it works or whatever. But all I can pull on is that, as I said, in the actual weekdays, there's no trouble. I know they shut earlier in the week. I know you're going to have a lot of people going out on a Friday and Saturday night. I've done it myself in the past. But as I said, yes, I would like to see an earlier closing time even after this COVID. This 10 o'clock thing has gone. As I said, so they would shut a bit earlier than the rest to alleviate this issue.
Okay. Well, I think Glenn will probably be best to answer that, or whether Piers, the solicitor, will.
I think it's probably one of mine. I don't want to cut Glenn off, but probably one of mine, because it's actually a punch issue. Punch called the premises license. So actually, it's an issue we have. Let's deal with this in stages. At the moment, we've got a 10 o'clock curfew, so the point is moot for the foreseeable future. And Boris Johnson's statements were that he foresaw this being in place for 6 months. I candidly don't think that will be the case. I think we'll see stricter lockdowns and then probably a relaxing of this, because putting everyone out on the streets at 10 o'clock creates its own problems. As I'm sure we all saw the pictures of Liverpool last weekend. It doesn't help, candidly. What I would say is this, though. We have to look at the period before the lockdown for our evidence of whether there was an issue that needs to be dealt with. And there is no evidence at all from either the applicant, any other residents, licensing, police, EHO to suggest that that's necessary. So if it's not necessary, then obviously it would be something that would go much further than would be appropriate and proportionate, which is the test you have to apply, as you very well know, as a committee to this. I'd also say this. One of the things we were looking at doing, and I know this is going to make Sam just feel really nervous about it, but it's one of the things we were considering doing just before the 10 o'clock lock-in came, or the 10 o'clock lockdown came, was actually opening later. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, Sam. As I'm saying this, I can imagine your reaction to it. But what we're seeing is a difficulty in dispersing people when they're leaving at 2. As in, the dispersal itself is more difficult because there are people from elsewhere. There's the taxi rank. There are people waiting outside, as is demonstrated in the evidence when we're long shut. And so we thought keeping people in our premises longer and having a much longer dispersal may actually assist in dealing with that. So my view is this: at the moment, whilst we've got a 10 o'clock lockdown, there is nothing practical we can do. If we look at the evidence of what happened before, to restrict the license more would require you to have evidence of problems at that stage that needed addressing. Candidly, there aren't any. We will work with Sam to try and work out the best way to make this work for everyone. But again, if we close earlier and there are still people milling around, there's no one to look after them. There's no one to actually oversee them or manage them. And there is a chance, it's speculation, but it's as much speculation that closing later might work, that actually it exacerbates the problem because there is no oversight of what is a busy place, as the evidence has shown since the 4th of July. Now, when the taxis go back up to the clubs, so fewer people are hanging around outside the taxi shops. When the fast food restaurants open later again, so people disperse up that way, and when the clubs open, we anticipate this problem is just going to go away. If it doesn't, Sam, come back and see us, and we'll have a chat about it. But I think it's too early at this stage, if I'm honest, to start talking about taking hours away from the premises or punishing them for matters that are outside of their hands to a large extent, as the evidence shows.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm sorry, I know that's not the answer Sam wants, but also we've got to run a business. We've got to try and...
I was just about to ask if Sam is satisfied that question has been answered.
I don't hear anything.
Sorry, Sam, I
didn't hear
myself
you. I'm
again.
sorry.
Oh, sorry. Ever since they moved my bar, I just keep muting myself. Apologies. I just said, are you satisfied that question has been answered, albeit probably not the response that you wanted?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been answered, but yes, it's not the response I wanted.
Okay. Did you want to hear from Glenn on that? Obviously, I know that it's something that obviously is obviously dealt with overall by Punch, with it obviously being one of their premises. But did you want Glenn to come in on that, being obviously the licence holder?
Well, yes, I'd like to hear his view.
Okay.
Thank you.
Glenn?
Yep, thank you. Just to answer Sam's question about last weekend, I took the decision not to put any entertainment on last weekend because of the new law changes. We needed to get to grips with that, get our customers used to that. So no entertainment was put on the weekend. You were away, unfortunately, Sam. But I am aware of the dispersal problem. The biggest problem we've got at the moment is we are emptying the entire pub at 2 o'clock. This is why we muted the idea of extending the opening time and letting fewer people out over a greater length of time rather than everyone being out on the street in one fell go. So it was something we were looking at. Unfortunately, the 10 o'clock system overtook us. So that's not a policy or an action we've been able to take part of. My personal feeling is it probably would help because there'd be, rather than having large groups of people outside, as I said, entirely emptying the pub at that time, it should disperse people a lot easier, a lot quieter. So that's my thoughts on it. I know it's not what Sam would want to hear, but I actually do believe it would help. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam, do you have any further questions for the solicitor?
I can't think of any now. If they have, they've probably gone out my head.
Okay, we're gonna do a summing up. So if there's anything that comes up in that, I will come back to you just to make sure that you have you have had your that you're happy that you've asked all questions that you would have wanted to.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Sam. Okay, I'll now go on. Aileen, have I asked you if you have any questions?
Yes, Chair, you did, and no, I haven't.
Thank you. Catherine, do you have any questions?
Not at the moment, no, I don't. Thank you, Chair.
And I believe we still don't have the police here, do we?
No, Chair.
No. Okay. Okay, so oh, sorry. John, did you have your hand up?
No, but see on the screen, Susan's got hers up.
No, it's mine actually, Chair.
Okay.
Sorry. I just wanted to ask Piers or Glenn, because it's come up earlier about swapping, about the doors, that they come out of one door and that may be the problem. Is there only 2 doors, as I've never been in the pub, so and I'm just trying to look at the map, and that's why I may be looking slightly funny because it's at an angle on my other screen. Is there only 2 doors at the pub? Is there only 2 entrance or exit doors? Is that all that is available to the pub? There's not a 3rd door.
I'll let Glenn handle that in terms of, there is a garden exit, and I think that there is obviously the patio at the back, but in terms of configuration for COVID, you have to have a one-way system where you can. Yeah. So that's why the 2 doors at the front are the natural entrances. We can manage the queue on one side, exit the other, but I'll let Glenn answer in terms of the actual structure, in terms of any other doors, and perhaps why we've done it that way.
Yeah, that's what I understand. I understand the rationale behind that, but I just wondered, because that sort of may have been exacerbated the problem or started the problem at some stage. So I didn't know if there was a potentially another door somewhere on the premises that could be used.
There are only 2 doors, one to the left of the pub and one to the right.
Yeah.
Pre-lockdown, they used both doors in and out, so the gathering outside and so on wasn't an issue because they could use both doors. But since lockdown, we've instigated the one-way system where the exit door is a self-closing and self-locking door. So once they're out of that door, they can't re-enter other than coming in. So we can control the numbers. So we know with the COVID regulations how many people we've got in and out of the pub. There is a garden exit, but it is an emergency exit. It is possible to use that, but then it totally throws out our one-way system. And it would also empty out into the alleyway, which is the alleyway that goes past Sam's property. So realistically, not a practical solution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions for anybody for Piers, the solicitor? No? Okay, well, we don't have the police here to give us any more information other than what we've got. So with that in mind, I will now give all parties the opportunity to sum up, and I will start with the applicant. Sam, have you got anything else that you would like to add? Anything, that you can really think of that you really want to say? Now's the time. Now's the time to say it.
Well, I'm trying to see if there was anything else I need to add to everything I've already given to you. But, I think most things have been covered. I would like to just, I did hear Glenn say something about the door, the exit door, that did he say that you can't go back in through the exit door? It's just I've seen people going back in that way as well. So they come out and sometimes go back into that door. So I find that a bit strange, him actually saying that.
Okay, Sam, I will give Glenn the opportunity to answer that to you, because I think it's quite important, something that needs to be covered, and give you a bit of peace of mind on that one. Okay.
Yes.
Glenn, are you able to elaborate on that at all?
Yes, certainly. There is a porchway by the exit, but the exit door itself leading back into the pub is self-closing and self-locking. So yes, they can come back into the porchway bit, but they can't actually re-enter the pub. So they may be coming back in to see where their friends have got to as they're coming out and so on and so forth, but they physically cannot re-enter the pub through that door.
Interesting.
Okay, Sam.
Yeah. I'm just seeing if there was anything else. Just bear with me. I think everything else has been covered.
Yeah, that's okay. What I'll do, Sam, I will go to all other parties to do their summing up, and I will come back to you just in case there's anything that you might want to add. But bear in mind, it is literally just summing up to anything that you might want to add, that you might want taken on board. But I will come back to you at the end if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks,
you.
Sam.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, I would go to the responsible authorities, but we don't have the police with us. But Catherine, do you have anything that you would like to put in for summing up?
No, I don't at the moment, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I will go to Piers, the solicitor, for summing up.
Thank you very much, Chair. Some scribbling notes as I go. Look, the reality is no one wants to be here, because what it means is, certainly when it's a resident review, and I know there aren't as many as perhaps police or authority reviews, it means someone's upset and someone believes that a premises is causing them issues. And no one wants to be in this position, least of all Glenn, least of all Punch. But the reality is we've been given very little chance, if you like, to try and put right anything that we could before the review was submitted. Sam and the residents put in the review without coming to us beforehand, asking us what we thought, how things were going, what we could do to help. And that does make things difficult. And the same actually from Francis. But be that as it may, we are here, we deal with it, we look to deal with it proactively. And in a way, I almost see hearings like this, and I have done previously, as being the mediation meeting that perhaps should have happened had Sam gone to one of the officers beforehand. As you'll see happened with Jane when you look at her statement and the other officers in their statements in terms of their engagement with Glenn. I think had we have had that mediation meeting, we probably wouldn't be here today, if I'm going to be perfectly honest about it. And I can say that because you can look at the proactive changes that have been made since issues were brought to our attention. Was that a dog or?
Sorry.
You're sneezing. Sorry. I suspect that the residents won't agree with this, but in my view, this is one of those reviews where actually, if you looked at the law itself and just the legal aspect of a review application, an informal warning would probably be what I would be pushing for. That being said, we do want to work with all parties, and we have come up with a suite of conditions that we believe improves the license and actually codifies what we can do under the licensing objective, and including the additional condition agreed with Aileen yesterday. Aileen, I apologise. Your own policy at 10.2.4 makes it clear that there will be no presumption of encouraging longer hours, and that you'll seek to establish the causal causes of the concerns. And
Sorry, Piers, you're covering up with the mic. You're covering up.
Oh, sorry. It's because I turned my head. It's the most directional microphone I think I've ever come across. So your own policy, section 10, deals with reviews, and it says there'll be no presumption against discouraging or encouraging longer hours. You'll seek to establish the cause or causes of concerns and take action that's appropriate. and you'd only consider the exclusion of a licensable activity, etc., when no conditions would address it. So we put forward conditions where, as I say, I don't think necessarily the legal position would be one must add them to the license, because we want to continue our work with people. And if I turn to the guidance itself, you'll be aware at paragraph 9.43 that all your determination must be evidence-based. And at 9.44, it goes on to say you must take into account the financial implications of your determination on the operation of the premises. So let's look at the evidence. Pages 4 and 5 of the long statement I put in deals with evidence that demonstrates there are issues that happen outside the premises when the premises is closed and has been closed for a significant period of time that cannot be associated with the premises. And if we turn to pages 4 and 5 of Francis's statement, which is the statement attached to Jane's second submission in the pack, you'll notice a couple of things there. She lists all the times where she had issues with music or noise in the garden, and they stop at the end of August. Her statement is dated the 18th of September. Now, there's a short period where she's away, but there is a period there where she doesn't have any complaints. And that's backed up by Jane's own visit to the premises, to the back of the premises, where she says things seem to have been resolved. And all right, there wasn't live music on immediately at that time, but if you take both of those bits of evidence together, it demonstrates that we have proactively dealt with the issues to a level where we believe we've done what needs to be done here. And there's no evidence to suggest otherwise. Glenn has said to Sam, and it's an open invitation to any residents, any officers, if you want to come and discuss matters, please come and discuss matters. We can work together on this. Taking action to restrict the hours I submit at this stage is going too far given the circumstances and given the fact that we all have to accept this is a unique situation that changes day by day, month by month, and is likely to do so for a period of time. When we get back to normal, this license should be as it was when it operated as well as it did, if I can put it in those terms. For this middle period, we will work as hard as we can and as proactively as we can to assist. But during this period, I'm afraid some of the issues that have been identified in terms of disorder outside the front must be taken as not being relevant to Hardy's. And if you accept that, one must accept that making draconian measures on Hardy's at this stage would again be a disproportionate action. So I'm going to propose the conditions we put forward, the additional amended condition that I agreed with Aileen as the appropriate and proportionate response in this review at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Piers. Thanks for that summing up. Would that have covered everything that Glenn might have wanted to add in any summing up?
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, again, I'm more than willing to work with the authorities that raise any issues, residents that raise any issues. It's a unique time. It's an extremely testing and trying time as a licensee to get my head around what's going on and what's happening, and that does have the knock-on effect that it affects not just me but everyone within the vicinity. But I'm more than happy to do whatever it takes to resolve these issues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And if it's okay with everybody, we'll go back to Sam, just see if Sam's got anything else that she would like to add. Bearing in mind, Sam, this is just going to be statements. It's not going to actually be questions directly to the solicitor. But if you've got anything else that you want to add, then I would encourage you to do so now.
Yes, my partner and I, yes, we understand the predicament that the pub is under with COVID and everything that is happening. We don't mind working with them. It's just at the beginning when we had these issues, it was quite hard to find out how to go about it and what path to actually go. Because it is such a unique thing that was happening. because it's a relation of a lot of things happening at one time, with the noise, with the lingering, and etc. I still maintain that it is Hardy's that is creating this issue, because of what I have seen. I've seen the customers coming out of that door. As I said, it's right near us, so I can see them coming out, and they just flood out onto the street, making a lot of noise. They're not getting into taxis. As I said before, 95% of them do walk home. So they're just lingering, having, it's an extension of the pub, if you understand what I mean. They're just out there having a good time, which yes, it was summer, it was nice weather, they were having a good time, and they were just lingering for 30, 40 minutes, and then they will go, unless there is then a bit of a fight that will happen because some of them are getting agitated with each other because they've had too much to drink. As I said previously, we've seen people wandering around the street or just coming out of Hardy's, virtually falling on the floor. This has happened a few times, and just wandering around. So, as I said before, I do think they're open too late, really. I do believe the issue will still be there if they open later. I just think it will just make it worse. I don't see it opening like till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning is going to stop them all coming out at once. I think they just want to stay there and get intoxicated and then just leave.
Okay,
and that's it. That's all I will say. Sorry if I went on.
No, it's fine. It's best to get it out your system and say what you've got to say. Obviously, I'm not going to go back to questions. It's stuff that you've already covered before, Sam. So I don't feel the need that we need to go back to get any answers. At the end of the day, it is summing up. So with that in mind, I will now go to Aileen for summing up, please.
Thank you, Chair. I must say that I do welcome the response from Piers and Punch Tavern, and the fact that there have been some changes made already. That does show that they are willing to work with officers to try and solve the situation. But conversely, I can also understand why members of the public would feel they needed to turn to us rather than try and deal directly with DPSs. The other thing I'd like to say is that we are in a very peculiar place. We do have very unusual dispersal patterns. We do have premises that aren't open that would normally be happen. What we also have is 10 p.m. closing now, and we have no idea what the next step will be, whether it will just be all open or some open or not open. This is not a one and only opportunity for a review. Further reviews can be sought if measures that are taken at this review, if that is what you decide to do, don't work. So I don't think we necessarily need to think of this as the final solution. It could be that this is the start of a different phase when we as officers start working more closely with the premises, and the premises starts working more closely with us and starts engaging with us and telling us what they're going to do. And then we can maybe facilitate the discussions between the premises and the neighbours, because that can be quite fraught. And we have officers that are perfectly capable and more than able to do that. If you are minded to amend the licence with the conditions that the solicitor has proposed, can I ask that you just give consideration to removing condition 9, because that would actually be a counter to the condition proposed to produce an outside management plan. But that's only if you consider that those conditions should be added to the licence. Thank you.
Thank you, Aileen. I appreciate that. I will now just go to our legal advisor just to clarify that all relevant points have been addressed. Philip.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think there's anything to add from my perspective.
Okay, thank you. And I will now just like to go back to say, does everybody feel as though they've had their say? Is there anything that anybody wants to add? Susan, I see you have your hand up.
Sorry, that must be a legacy hand, as we call it now. I'll take it down.
Okay, thank you. In which case, the public part of this meeting will now conclude. The subcommittee will consider decision in private with the Democratic Service Officer in remote attendance and the legal advisor who will be called upon should we need any legal advice. The decision of the Licensing Subcommittee shall be communicated to the parties and made available on the Council's website as soon as possible within the prescribed time limit of 5 working days. And I would just like to say that obviously you have a right to appeal. You've got 21 days within receiving your written confirmation of this meeting to Weymouth magistrates. Aileen, is there anything that you would like to add before I close this meeting regarding sending out the decision notice?
We will send it out as soon as we have it.
Okay, thank you. In that mind, I would like to thank everybody for attending the meeting today, and we will now retire to make our decision. Thank you very much. I will declare this meeting closed.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair.